You ever have one of those days where your calendar is just packed? You're bouncing from task to task, you're completely stressed out, but at the end of it all, you look back and think, what did I actually get done today? Yeah, I have been there. So I ran a little experiment on myself. For 7 days, I lived my life by one simple rule, the 80-20 rule. And the results? Whoa, they were absolutely mind-blowing.
Okay, so let's just start with a really important question here. Are you busy or are you productive? Because I'm telling you, they are not the same thing. Not even close. See, being busy, that's just motion. It's filling your day. Being productive, that's about progress. It's about actually moving forward. And that feeling of being totally overwhelmed, it usually comes from confusing those two things.
And this is where the 80-20 rule comes in. Now, its fancy name is the Pareto Principle, but all you need to know is this simple, kind of crazy idea. For pretty much anything, about 80% of your results will come from just 20% of your efforts. Let that sink in. A tiny fraction of what you do is responsible for almost everything you achieve. This chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? That huge 80% chunk, that's all the busy work. It's the small tasks, the constant interruptions, the stuff that makes us feel like we're working but doesn't really move the needle. But that little 20% slice? That's the gold. That's the high-impact stuff that creates nearly all of our real progress. And this isn't just some abstract business theory. It's literally everywhere you look. In sales, 80% of the revenue comes from 20% of the customers. But think about your own life. You probably get 80% of your happiness from 20% of your friends. And at work, 80% of your actual meaningful accomplishments come from a tiny handful of tasks. The whole secret is figuring out which ones they are. So that brings us to the first thing I had to do in my experiment. I had to identify my vital few. And I'll be honest with you, this is the most important part of the whole process, and it is by far the hardest. It forces you to get real with yourself. My method was pretty simple, but man, was it effective. First, I just wrote down everything I did in a normal work week. Big stuff, small stuff, all of it. Then came the hard part. I ranked every single one of those tasks not by how urgent it felt, but by its true impact. Like, does this thing actually get me closer to my biggest goals? But then, bam. Day 2, I hit a complete wall. I realized I was making a huge mistake, one that almost completely derailed the entire experiment. I was focusing on the wrong things, even inside what I thought was my 20%. This is the trap I walked right into. I was prioritizing the easy 20%. You know the ones, answering emails to get that sweet feeling of an empty inbox, making tiny little edits, doing tasks that just felt productive. But the real 20%, the stuff that actually mattered, that was the hard stuff. The deep research, the long editing sessions, the tasks that required 100% of my focus. I had to pivot. And fast. But once I made that correction, the entire game changed. So phase 2 of this thing was all about execution. And that meant being absolutely ruthless in eliminating everything that wasn't on that hard 20% list. And when I say ruthless, I mean it. If a task wasn't in my top 20%, it got delegated, delayed, or just deleted. For me, this meant no more answering messages before my deep work was done. It meant saying no to meetings without a clear purpose, and it meant I had to stop obsessing over tiny little details that, let's be real, nobody was going to notice anyway. My entire mindset just shifted. I stopped trying to do more stuff and started focusing on doing the right stuff, better. It was a very conscious choice, quality over quantity every single time, impact over just being active. By the end of those 7 days, the change wasn't just something I could feel. It was something I could measure. I was, and you're not going to believe this, 5 times more effective. Not a little bit, 5x. I mean, the results were just staggering. Look at this. In a normal week, I'd be lucky if I finished 1 major project. In my 80-20 week, I finished 5. 5! But you know what? The biggest change wasn't even the output. It was my mental state. I went from feeling completely fractured and scattered to having this incredible, focused clarity. I wasn't just working anymore. I was winning. So you want to get these same results, right? Well, good news is you don't have to go on a 7-day deep dive like I did. You can start today, right now. Here's a super simple 3-step action plan. Okay, step 1. Get super clear on your single biggest goal. What is the one thing that would be a total game changer for you?
Step 2, brain dump every single task you do that's related to that goal. And step 3, be ruthless. Circle only 1 or 2 things on that list, the items that will have the absolute biggest impact. That's it. Those 1 or 2 things you just circled, that's your 20%. Now, the final step, and it is the most important, you have to protect the time for those tasks like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is.
You know, it all boils down to this one brutal, honest truth. Most of what we do all day long, it doesn't really matter that much. But when you find that powerful 20% and you pour all of your energy and focus into it, that's when you unlock some seriously exponential results. So, I'll leave you with this challenge. Look at your to-do list for tomorrow. What's one low-impact 80% task that you are going to ruthlessly cut, delay, or delegate to make room for what truly matters